You know, next week on Wednesday, April 22nd is Earth Day, and it just happens to be the 22nd annual Earth Day. That's right, in 1970, they celebrated or acknowledged the first Earth Day. Now, of course, Earth Day has to do with environmental issues and just trying to make people more aware of the environment and its sensitivity. And you might be asking, well, what in the world does Earth Day have to do with gardeners? Well, one of the things, of course, anytime that we're gardening, we're dealing with environmental issues, and we have to be very aware of the environment around us because of the way it reacts to the plants that we grow. So I'd kind of like to challenge you to think about Earth Day and some of the environmental things that you can do in your own landscape. And one of those things might be just planting a tree like I'm doing here. Now, of course, we just celebrated Arbor Week, but really we should be interested in planting trees to help improve the environment on a regular basis. And if you've already planted trees in your own landscape, well, go ahead and find another community or civic group activity that you can get involved with to plant more trees. And don't forget, too, that there's much more to it than just planting the tree. There's a lot of maintenance that we need to follow up that really relate to the environment, too. Another good practice that's very environmentally sound in your landscape is recycling. It's a word we hear a lot about these days, but there's really a few things that you can do in your landscape that fall in line with this practice, such as anytime you plant a new tree or shrub, you may want to try to take those plastic pots back to the landscape company or nursery where you purchased them and either let them reuse them, or there are companies now that are starting to take those and recycle them. And of course, earlier on the show today, we talked about mulching, and the tree companies are all the time taking the tree trimmings to the landfill. Again, ask for those clippings and trimmings. A lot of times they're free and they'll bring them to you, and again, you would be reusing them and recycling them. And then if you're going to mulch with other types of products, a good thing to use is your newspapers. Again, those are very safe to use these days, as well as paper grocery sacks. And those of you who live out in the rural parts of Oklahoma with cattle, you may want to try recycling your feed sacks and using those for mulch as well. And we've also talked to you on Oklahoma Gardening about not collecting those grass clippings. Don't take them to the landfill. Again, figure out how to use them, and the best way is just to leave them on the lawn or try to compost them for mulch. And if you're a gardener, or even if you don't garden and you have a landscape, you really should be getting involved in composting. There's so many things that you can do to recycle products and debris from your own landscape. And also, anytime you change the oil from your tiller or lawnmower, find the locations that are recycling the oil. That's a nice thing that you can do that's very easy to do and really helps in protecting the environment. Now, when we talk about pesticides, there's a lot of controversy there over organic and synthetic pesticides. Whether you practice either one of those, there's really some points that you need to keep in mind. And first of all, it really starts with the attitude. Whatever you do, don't think that if a little bit does good, that adding more is going to do better. It doesn't. It harms the environment. Follow those directions, whether you use organic or not. Also, some of the organics are more toxic at the time of application. So again, you've got to read the directions and be responsible in those cases too. They may not persist in the environment as long, but at the time of application, again, they may be more toxic. So it's very important that you know how to wash those containers out and how you recycle or get rid of the containers once they're empty. So you've got to do your homework there and follow those directions. And a lot of times we end up with different types of hazardous materials, and one thing that you need to be familiar with are amnesty days. They're not too common in Oklahoma, but it's a day that the community or civic groups or even the city municipalities will host an amnesty day where you can bring your hazardous materials and dispose of those at no charge. If there's no such thing in your area, check into your commissioners and city council people to see if one of those could be organized for your particular area. And also I want to talk to you about fertilizing. Don't fertilize your lawn, trees, or vegetables just for the heck of fertilizing. You really need to do your homework again. Take a soil test to know what this soil needs, what it's deficient in, and then apply those products only. Try to get by with a minimum maintenance so you're not overdoing it. We don't have to have things as green as they need to be. And then look into slow release products, especially organic type products or other synthetic ones that are using the coated fertilizers that actually make them slow release. So you can see there's a lot of things you can do in your own backyard to help protect the environment. And remember too that you can be a role model for your own children and not only get them involved in gardening, but also in the environmentally sound gardening too.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.